peace, breathing quiet, sentiment, benevolence. Dharma friends, sitting still in vital silence, wanting nothing. We practice eco-Buddhism together. The sound of the temple bell booms for all to cease from conflict. May the way of Buddha usher in the dawn of nonviolent global village forever. Here's the after sound of the bell. Thunder of silence, light after Dharma rain. Om Maga Virachana Mahamudra Manipada Java Pravataya
Please stand and join me in chanting of the three refrains. And we will take refuge in Buddha Dharma Sangha, first in Sino-Korean, in keeping with our tradition, and then in English. So please throw your voice in as best you can. I go for refuge to the Buddha
I go for refuge to the Buddha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
I will cultivate a heart of enlightenment
and realize the great way.
and realize the great way.
I go for refuge to the Dharma
I go for refuge to the Dharma
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will penetrate the teachings
I will penetrate the teachings
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
and uncover oceans of wisdom.
I go for refuge to the Sangha
I go for refuge to the Sangha
and resolve with all beings.
and resolve with all beings.
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
I will seek peace and happiness for the many
and transform this world into Buddha land unimpeded.
and transform this world into Buddha land unimpeded.
And now our dedication to ancestors. On this 31st day of May 2026, we acknowledge that this land where our temple buildings stand has been the home of native peoples, the Potawatomi, the Odawa, and the Ojibwe, the Council of the Three Fire Tribes, and also of Black Americans. We know that this neighborhood used to be a historically Black neighborhood during times of sanctioned racial segregation and oppression. For our own awakening and for the awakening of all life, may the benevolent energies of our meditation, chanting, and full presence here at this service this morning extend to all beings on this planet and throughout time and space. May there be a deepening of our interbeing. May peace prevail and wars cease. And now we make 3 bows to the altar. Please return to your places for another brief period of meditation. Please sit comfortably. Does that mean it's on or the battery's dead? Okay, so perhaps, can you hear me? Okay. We'll try this if the battery, oh yes, okay. We're going to switch the battery, so just. Twenty people from Ann Arbor who drove there to receive precepts. And so there's a combined precept taking ceremony, Chicago. Ann Arbor folks next week will come back and be introduced to the Sangha. Those of you who are curious about what precepts are, it's a set of Buddhist moral guidelines that really provide us with some guidance for skillful living. And this particular group that's taking precepts has studied the guidelines for about 5-6 months and chosen to make a commitment to try to uphold them and to sort of formally enter a Buddhist path. Upholding them, of course, is very difficult. They're like the 10 Commandments, except, well, one difference might be the consequences are not so dire. If you break commandments, you know, hellfire and brimstone, I have this image, will come down on you. But if you break precepts, you have an opportunity to start again and do them again. So 5 key precepts are, number 1, not to harm, but to cherish all life. Number 2, not to take what's not given, but to respect the things of others. Number 3, do not misuse your sexuality. Number 4, to not misuse intoxicants. And number 5, to not to lie, but to speak the truth. In addition, there are other lists of precepts, some longer, and I want to read a couple to you today. These are from the 10 Bodhisattva precepts, the Brahmanet Sutra. And then we'll use this to introduce our Dharma talk. Okay, so this particular list has 10 in it. So here is number 6. Do not speak of the misdeeds of others, but try to understand them with sympathy. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of friendship. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. And number 7, do not praise yourself nor condemn others. If you violate this precept, you will destroy your seed of respect. Therefore, you will not be able to go forth on the Bodhisattva path. So what's nice about this particular version of precepts is that, it sort of tells you what the outcome is of following or not following the guideline. So in this case, we're talking about seeds of friendship and respect, which I'm sure all of us would like to cultivate. So this brings me then to both of these precepts are tied to the judging mind, which is our Dharma topic for today. This cycles through my life. I'm sure it cycles through your life as well on a pretty regular basis. And interestingly, as I go back and look through old Dharma talks, I talked about judgment more than once. And each time I approach it, I learn a little something new. But it doesn't seem to be something that goes away. And the reason is judgment is very much tied to the 3 poisons of greed, anger, and delusion, deeply embedded sort of in our character. And so we have to learn to work with it, but please don't have the impression that someday you're just going to be totally free of judgment and life will be all wonderful and happy. Another way this came up recently is our residents are having discussions about our intentions, what's next for us as we move down this Buddhist path. Each person has something that they're working on. And for me, the one I'm choosing to work on at this point is judging mind. It's especially as I'm approaching a life transition point, I want to be as open and as free and as flexible as possible. And I find that when I'm in a place of judgment, I'm narrowing my options. I'm making it far more difficult for myself to go through a good transition. By extension, even though transition comes up in, well, let me first give you a few mundane examples, and then we'll move to some bigger examples. So, for example, this week, even as we were having this conversation about intentions and judgments, I went to breakfast and nobody had done the dishes from the day, nobody had run the dishwasher. So there were no bowls for us to eat out of. And my mind went immediately to, well, the cooks are supposed to take care of this. Why aren't they on top of it? Pretty judgmental kind of place. I didn't say anything. But in the next moment, one of my housemates said, oh, well, why don't we just use plates instead? Duh. What a simple solution. I didn't have to go to that place of judgment. I find myself, other examples of this would be, we have a schedule here at the temple. Residents are asked to come to practice at least once a day. And not all residents are able to uphold this schedule. My mind can go to a place of judgment of, well, why are they here? They don't really have a sincere heart. They're just taking advantage of the temple because it's a nice place to live. Yada, yada, yada. That does not nourish my seed of friendship. You see what I just did? I sort of condemned others, and I brought up their misdeeds. Let's see. I need one or two more examples. Yeah, recently we had this big Buddhist birthday event, and I have some responsibility for coordinating that event. So as I was when I'm working on something like that, which involves about 50 people doing things, first of all, I draw up a list of people I want to contact and invite to participate. And I divide the list in, these people are capable, these are not capable, these are reliable, these are not reliable, this kind of thing. Putting people in these judgmental kinds of categories. And also sort of clinging to traditions that we may have done in the past. The way that we hang the dedications from the lanterns, the way that we invite people to do that, all those sorts of things. They can see this too is kind of limits our creativity. And then one final example I would give is I judge myself a lot. I think many of us fall into this trap. And so I say, well, why am I talking about judgment again? I should have figured it out by now, for Pete's sake. And yada, yada, yada. A couple more serious examples. We can extend this as we think about our relationships, the impact on our community, the impact on our society. It's easy to make judgments based on how people look, what they say, what their habits are. So we have a lot of judgments that are embedded, that we learned in our culture over the years. Judgments about race, about class, maybe about credentials that people carry around with them. And I see a lot of judgment being played out at a national level. And it's, for me, not helpful, pretty demoralizing thing that's going on in our society. So I always look to other teachers when I'm working on these Dharma talks, other teachers, sometimes listen to Dharma talks and so on. And I did find some wisdom from other teachers talking about not only what this judging mind is, but also how to work with it. So let's start with Tara Brach, a fairly well-known meditation teacher. And she points out that these judgments often arise from deep-seated beliefs, biases, and protective feelings. They're not inherently wrong, but they're part of our human nature. However, moving beyond the judgment opens us up, softens things, and helps us see more clearly and connect more deeply. And she talks about allowing ourselves to go to a place of vulnerability so that we can not only see others' faults, but freely examine our own. Another interesting article was entitled Judging Mind and Discerning Mind. And this was written by Corrado Pensa, who lives in Italy and serves as a guiding teacher for the Association of Mindfulness in Rome. And he talks about the distinction between a judging mind, which has many limiting qualities, and a discerning mind, which is receptive and open. So adjectives that describe the judging mind: compulsive, comparative, clogged with opinions, fixed, rigid, sterile, selective. The judging mind is like marks carved in stone. And then adjectives that describe the discerning mind include receptive, humble, empty, free, light, flowing, compassionate, equanimous, flexible, creative. The discerning mind is free to move and to see into things. The discerning mind is like marks carved into stone. So even though we want to move beyond dichotomies, I do find this, it's sort of helpful in understanding not only what judging mind looks like, but also how we can use our mind to be discerning, which is a skillful place to be. So how do we do this? How do we move away from judging mind? So Corrado Pensa points out that judging mind is a manifestation of suffering, the first noble truth. So those who have read and studied the First Noble Truths might remember that the task associated with working with the First Noble Truth is simply to see it or understand it, not to immediately go to action or speech. Although I think that's also helpful. You've heard fake it till you make it. Sometimes it is helpful to do the behaviors so that you begin to understand what it looks like when you get there. But basically, the task is simply to understand that that is an invitation to simply observe judgment and what's going on in your life. There was another teacher, Diana Winston, who works with adolescents, and she was holding a workshop with them about self-judgment. Their assignment was to go away and in their life count how many times judgment came up for them in a month. And one student came back and she says, it is 1,162 times I found myself making judgment. So any of you are curious and want to engage in this exercise, it does help you become aware of its prevalence. Several teachers suggest affectionate observation as a method of working with the judging mind. So when it arises, just label it without getting into a story about it. So it's like, there you are, judgment, I see you. That's like when Buddha asked Mara to come to tea, Mara being a tempter. Mara shows up and you say, I see you, my friend. Come and have tea with me. So it's just sort of a friendly, affectionate acknowledgement that the judgment is there. Another suggestion is metta practice, loving kindness practice. So when judgmental thoughts arise, we can replace them with more benevolent ones, such as, may you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you be well. When I find myself in this place, somebody maybe people that I habitually don't get along with so well, or habitually have judgment about, is helpful to do this, just to step back and do it. So that's what we would call watering the good seeds. Other examples, when we read those two precepts, if you read the flip side of them, do not speak of the misdeeds of others. If you cultivate this precept, then you are watering the seed of friendship. Do not praise yourself or condemn others. If you cultivate this precept, then you are watering your seed of, what's the patient? Right? Trust. Yeah. So you can look at it that way. That when we engage in things like metta practice, we're trying to water our good seeds. We don't always have to feed the negative judgments that come up. The grounding practice of going to the body is also useful. So when judgments arise, where do you feel it in your body? For me, I can feel it in my face. I feel my face kind of tensing up. And probably those who know me even somewhat know when I'm getting, I don't have to say a word. They know I'm making a judgment. They just have to look at me. Yeah. And then I'm just trying to breathe into it. And then one final suggestion I would offer is don't take it so seriously. Why suffer if you don't need to? So no need to perpetuate that cycle. There is a few verses in the Dhammapada talking about praise and blame, which are forms of judgment. Listen, Arula, this is not new. That's an old saying. They blame you for being silent. They blame you when you talk too much and when you talk too little. Whatever you do, they blame you. The world always finds a way to praise and a way to blame. It always has and it always will. But who dares blame the one whom the wise continually praise, whose life is virtuous and wise, who shines like a coin of pure gold? This comes from the Dhammapada, chapter 17 on anger. And implied sort of in this last verse is find good friends, associate with good friends, so that you can be inspired by them. And just like my friends at breakfast the other day, who said, why don't we use plates? You can sort of get out of a negative place that you might be in. So now, just moving to the discussion portion of our talk today, I would like to open it up, and if someone could pass the microphone, maybe someone or Margamon. And my questions of you are, what is your experience of judgment? What is your experience of judgment in your life? How does it cause you to suffer? And how do you work on it? Any of those three questions?
Hi, I'm Ivy Baum. With judgment this morning, when I woke up to go to the Buddhist temple, I was finally on time for once. I got up, well, pretty much on time. Anyway, so I go, to the driveway to get in my car, and I see it's not there. I share it with my brother. And so I called him. He said he ended up spending the night at his friend's house. I was a little annoyed, but I went upstairs, asked my mom if I could take her car. She said sure. But while I was driving, I was still upset and I was still being judgmental of my brother. Lost in this judgment, I ended up taking M14 East instead of M14 West, and I added 12 minutes to my drive.
As a college student who's kind of not super in touch with the mainstream or other people my age, I think that I pass judgment on people who I assume will judge me. And I think that very much acts as like a protective function. And I think, I don't remember exactly what you had said about it, but the Buddha inviting that temptation in for tea, but more so I took from that is you can invite your feelings in for tea and ask them about themselves. Like if you're feeling that judgment, ask yourself why and find the root of it, because usually I find that it is more to do with me than about the person that I'm judging.
Good morning, Sangha. Judgment. Well, I've been raised in it. I was raised by a judgmental mother that labeled everyone and everything around her. It was a safety mechanism. She ran from Yugoslavia, from the German war, so we can kind of imagine the stories behind her life. But it affected me terribly because I adopted judgment as in being part of nature itself. And until just a few years ago, it caused me nothing but pain, because what I discovered today is judgment is a wall or a key that we use constantly all day to block ourselves from every good path that is out there. We literally narrow every option that we have in life with judgment. It closes doors, it shuts windows, it paints images over things that are not there. It literally does everything to distort the truth. Today, I find that trying to step away from judgment, and I do say try because I am not always successful, but it brings me in a much better place. For example, as my better half. For 8 years now, we've been together, and for almost close 7 years, I can say faithfully, that I judged her because I got secretly angered at her at times because I felt that she should be acting a certain way, doing a certain thing as a wife or as a fiance or whatever, which in some form it is true, but in others it isn't. This is Tammy. Tammy is Tammy. Tammy will be Tammy and do Tammy. It doesn't cater to my judgment and my needs. But now that I step away from that, now I realize that the annoying parts of my beautiful Tammy here that truly pissed me off at times, they forgive my language, but I had to say that because it's truly accurate. I discovered that she is the biggest lesson in my life. She is helping me through parts of my journey that she is the only one that would be able to get me to that. Because any one of you put me in that situation, well, it wouldn't turn well. And I would not be receptive, and I wouldn't try to even re-examine it to learn anything. But the universe putting this beautiful creature in my life, well, I have no choice but to re-examine it and to rethink about it. And today I discovered if I take judgment out of that, I can actually see the good in it. I can actually see where, well, even though it might not be what I expected, it might not be what I like, there's good to be taken out of it. And now I love her for it instead of being mad at her for it. So, judgment's not good, man, but it is part of it. It's just, let's work around it. Thank you.
Tammy has a comment. Good morning. So for me, judgment, like I've realized, so it typically stems from like an unrealistic expectation of another human being, right? And it's like a form of control too. Like in my brain, I think a person should act, think, speak a certain way. And it also, my judgmental mind can come when I feel like inferior to somebody or superior. And when I'm like walking in discernment, like that's when I have empathy and compassion and understanding, and like, because we're all mirrors of each other, right? But I don't like the feeling, like I can feel it on my face too. I'm like, immediately you'll know when I'm judging, because I'm just like this face on me. And it's funny because I used to feel guilty about it, like through Christianity or religion teaches you like it's the ultimate sin, and like, but it feels good to be the Buddhist path because I can just be. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is, and that's okay. Yeah, that's what I have.
Hello, this is directed towards you specifically. I went through a very harsh time that I have a very dear sibling who, first she was found innocent on the federal level. An attorney showed an autopsy, and her patient was not killed by pain medicine. He was shot by a gun. And it just went on and on. She ended up being arrested on the state level. And I was working so hard. I flew to a hearing and she was released from jail. But there was all kinds of trouble moving to 3 different places, whereas a brother closed the family Florida property against her. And somebody stole her gun, somebody stole her phone. She was on tether, and if she would break that time that she was allowed out, she would be taken back to jail. She was running up stone steps to take her food to a place that had no elevator. And so I'm so confused about the trauma of the whole thing that, I ended up needing to use the laundry here. I think I had a kitty that was sick, and my mind was not well when I was trying to do the laundry, and all kinds of judgmental things against myself that might have been totally false. I was carrying an aura, oh, Ma'um thinks that I'm stealing. I have a horrible memory of my husband being really mean about housework. So I just hated laundry baskets. So I started to bring a laundry basket to you as a donation, and just something flipped in my mind that you were as mean as my husband about housework. And I took the laundry basket back. All my behavior was insane. Nobody could understand it. And it was a lot of suffering, but my sister's in a better place, and I did try to help her. I did help her get out of jail.
I can think of a lot of specific examples about being mental or feeling judged, but one of the things I was thinking about in the talk was like the fetters that the Buddha and other people go through on their way to awakening, and the last among the last fetters is like comparing mind and judgment, but the difference between like once returner and never returner is like being less judgmental. It's not even eliminating judgment. It's something that's so strong that it's like, oh, if you're just a little bit less, that's fine too. And I think that that's very helpful when I feel myself being subject to comparing mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Judging myself hurts my practices and hurts my devotion. In meditation, when I find my mind straying, it's hard not to punish myself for that, which makes my mind stray more. But if I just keep thinking about the ocean and the waves like coming up and going down with my breath, and don't chastise myself for straying, it feels a lot easier.
Good morning, my own. I had 2 incidents of being judgmental. When we open up, you talk about racial discrimination and oppression. I'm in my mid-70s, so I had direct experience of dealing with that. And one day, my wife said, we're going up to Boeing Mountain. That's like 100+ miles north. And in my mind, I was full of fear because all I seen was pickup trucks, shotguns, Confederate flags, and all like that. So that was the judgment I had. But once I got there, it was a whole nother story. The people were so hospitable, so warm. And it made me realize that what I perceived up there, they probably were perceiving the same thing about Detroit, Michigan. See. And another incident where judgment paid off, my wife and I was on a cruise a couple of years ago. And they had a contest on the cruise called Mr. Sexy Legs. And she encouraged me to get into the contest. And I'm looking at all them young guys with the abs and muscles and But you know what I observed, my own? Most of the crowd was senior citizens. And when it was my turn to come out and dance, I said, I'm here to represent the senior community on this vessel. All right? And I danced, and all the women got up, and they put money in my swimming trunks and stuff. My wife didn't like that part at all. And they went by applause, what place you came in. And I'm again here to tell you who you think came in first place. See, so the judgment was, I said, okay, let me view the crowd. And there was a lot of senior people there. And I came to represent them in my 70s. So yeah, I came in first place. But my wife did take the money out my trunk. So. Thank you, guys.
So, this is good for today, perhaps? Oh, I'm sorry, was someone else? Yes, absolutely.
I always feel a little bad when I have the mic a second time. I don't know. I get things on my mind sometimes. Anyway, I was thinking about this time. I was talking to this guy online once, and initially he was, really transphobic and hateful, to me. And I was judgmental back, in response. But eventually we started talking about religion. This guy's Christian, I'm Buddhist. And we have a lot more in common, than we do different. We both, try to understand love and try to understand, a path to happiness. Even if he is, even if he can be hateful, this person isn't so different from me and isn't, so lost that they can't, understand love, things like that.
In my life, I've been very sensitive to criticism, judgment, starting with my father and continuing with a number of other people. I have a hard time letting go of my tendency to kind of retreat. I don't want to be aggressive to someone else, but I can't change someone else. I can't always change myself to get around the criticism. So I'm kind of stuck.
The more that I've heard from everyone, the more that I like the idea of not necessarily trying to fight judgment. I was reading a book by Thich Nhat Hanh, and he was describing perception. And the more that I think about it, judgment and perception are sort of similar, and that judgment doesn't necessarily have to have a super negative connotation, and that it's more of an opportunity to examine our beliefs versus our initial thoughts and kind of compare those to reality if they're matching.
A lot of good wisdom shared today.
Summer.
Oh, okay. Good morning. Welcome to the Zen Buddhist Temple, and especially warm welcome to anyone who's here for the first time. Raise your hands if you're here for the first time. We're glad to have you. And we also want to thank everyone who participated and volunteered last week for Buddha's birthday. It's always a joy to spend time together, working, playing, practicing, and getting to know each other. Also, our temple is a home to a vibrant residential community. We will have rooms available this fall, so keep us in mind if you'd like to live with us for a time. The residents engage deeply in practice and in temple life while maintaining outside responsibilities. Some of our upcoming events, every Saturday from 3 to 5, we have Together Action. So you can deepen your connection to the temple, make Dharma friends, and help maintain the temple buildings and grounds. Upcoming Sunday, June 14th, you're invited to our Liberation of Life ceremony. There is more information about this to come. Every Monday evening, 6:30 to 8, we have Qigong with Samatha. We also have an upcoming beginner's meditation class. It's an overnight retreat format this time. It's Friday, June 12th. It starts at 7 p.m. on Saturday. No, it starts at Friday at 7 p.m. and goes to Saturday at noon. And also coming up is Peace Camp, August 1st through 6th. We'll be holding this special event. We have been holding this special event for more than 40 years. This year, we're looking for volunteers to help in the kitchen and as camp counselors. So if you can help, registration is open until the end of June. Also have some announcements about Recovery Dharma.
Recovery Dharma will meet at noon today in the historic Buddha Hall, big yellow building right next door in the library.
And if you have any more questions about any of these events, you can talk to any of the Dharma teachers. They're dressed in gray today. There are also sign-up sheets in the lobby. Also, our temple is entirely funded by your generous donations and financial support. There's a fishbowl in the lobby for your monetary donations. We have a PayPal QR code as well as a format for electronic credit card devices.
So a small amount of together action right after service. We have some plants now that it is springtime that we would like to bring outside. And some of them are quite heavy. So a couple of strong people to help move them outside would be appreciated. They are in the library, the same room as Recovery Dharma. So I would suggest that we allow Bill John to go through, open the door, go through a volunteering, go right after service